happy to be here for this episode of Major Tim's Space. I'd like to thank Amelia Piper for the invitation. Today, we're going to be talking about World Space Week and the way that families can celebrate or observe World Space Week. When I thought about doing this video, I thought about 3 different audiences that might be interested in some of the things that I have to say or some of the suggestions that I'm going to make. The first one is kids who are already excited about space and astronauts and astronomy and exploration, but maybe their parents aren't quite into it, and so you need ways to get your parents involved. The second audience I was thinking about is parents and grandparents like me who are really into space and space exploration and space history, and maybe want ways to share that passion with our children and grandchildren. And then the third audience is maybe people who are slightly interested and maybe they're interested in other areas of science, and space is kind of a peripheral interest, and they're thinking, what should I read or what should I do to get more involved in the world of space exploration? What kind of resources are out there? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. First, just a little bit about me. You see my shirt here. I'm a space hipster. Well, what's a space hipster? My son actually got me re-involved in space exploration when he was a little boy and went to a summer enrichment program on astronomy. And he was really interested in some of the things that he was learning about the planets and the stars and the moon. And so I started, like a good mom would, taking him to planetarium shows and other events that he might be interested in. We watched a few documentaries together. And gradually, I became more interested in this world too. I grew up in an era when people were going to space all the time in the space race, in the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo era. I was 12 years old, I think, maybe 13. Yeah, 13, just turned 13 when the Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon in 1969. So it's just a part of my childhood that got rekindled because of my son's interest. Eventually, I became a moderator of the Facebook group Space Hipsters, which was started by Emily Carney in 2011. I've been a moderator since 2012, and my role in Space Hipsters is sort of education and outreach. That's kind of what I specialize in, which is kind of natural because my day job is being a historian. I'm actually a historian of medieval England, and so most of the time, professionally, I spend thinking about castles and old parchments and cathedrals and kings and queens and serfs and knights and things like that. But more and more I've been able to incorporate some of the things that I do for fun, the space race stuff, into my teaching. And I have been teaching a few courses on the space race and getting today's students, college students, more involved in the history of the space race because I'm a historian. I thought about sort of 5 ways in which we can sort of share our passion or learn more about space. 5 verbs that I'd like to talk to you about. The first one is look, and it's actually a phrase because it's look up. Your child doesn't have to be very old before that child can notice that the moon doesn't stay in the same place and that it changes over the course of a month. And they don't have to be very old before you can teach them terms like waning and waxing and crescent and full moon and half moon, and sort of get them used to the rhythms of the sky really early on. Right now, where I live, I can see 4 visible planets over the course of a night. Mars and Jupiter and Saturn in the evening, and then in the morning we can see Venus when we get up and take our morning walk. Pretty soon in the Northern Hemisphere, we'll be able to see Orion's belt, and that's really easy even for a 3-year-old to find. So just looking up and noticing that big cosmos and answering kids' questions about sunrises and sunsets and things like that. So look, when you get more sophisticated at it, you can go to planetarium shows and you can go to star parties and things like that. But just simply first, just look. One fun thing to do is that there are apps, and I will link some apps to the video here, that can tell you when the International Space Station is going to be flying overhead your area. And sometimes, especially if you get a nice long 6-minute pass, it's just really fun to think about the people that are 200 miles above you and have been for over 20 years continuously circling the Earth and doing science from space. So that's kind of cool. So look is my first verb. The second one is play. you can't stop kids from playing. And kids, when your parents want you to go play, you need some quality toys. You can talk to them about that. And I have just a few, different things that we have toys, the space toys that we can play with together as families. All the way from little kids stuff, like these little blocks and things like that you can introduce the moon surface, the lunar rover. This is, of course, toy of the space shuttle there with the payload bays open. This one here, does anybody recognize this one? This is it's a SpaceX toy. I got it, or it's actually a Beanie Baby toy, but it's a SpaceX toy because at the Crew Dragon, the first commercial cruise ship that just went up to the International Space Station, the astronauts Doug and Bob took a toy that belonged to one of their daughters, and when they reached 0G with the camera going on inside the spacecraft, they let go of the toy and you could see it rise. And so SpaceX, of course, decided that they would start selling these things. Here's my deal, parents. Here's something for older kids and parents to get together. Lego and Playmobil and a couple other quality toy companies make models and things like that you can work on with your child, or just sometimes grown-ups like to do them all by themselves. They're really kind of cool. This is my son's Saturn V that I gave him for Christmas a couple of years ago. And it has 1,969 pieces because the moon landing was 1969. I thought that was kind of cool. So just all kinds of things like that. But here's my thing. Don't buy your kids collectibles. Buy your kids toys. Kids don't really get the, oh, that's really cool, I would love to play with that. Oh, no, you can't play with it. It's just to put on the shelf and look at. No. If you have to do that, if you have to have a collectible, get two. Get one to collect and keep, and one for your kid to play with so that he can really sort of experience the toy there. Maybe get three. Elon Musk needs the money. So look up play. Third verb is read. Read together. And the best way to raise a kid to read is to read with your kid. Kids, buy books for your parents that are about things you're interested in for Christmas, for other holidays. If you're just getting started and you don't know where to start, what's the best book? Space enthusiasts almost unanimously agree that Michael Collins' Carrying the Fire is the best space autobiography ever written. Michael Collins was part of the Group 3 astronauts and went to the moon on Apollo 11. He also flew on the Gemini spacecraft. He also writes beautifully. This is for grown-ups or maybe older kids, teens, and maybe even some preteens that really like to read. There was a child's book about Mike called The Man Who Went to the Far Side of the Moon. I wish I could show it to you, but I'm always giving away my copy, and I don't happen to have a copy now. I'll have to order another one. There are also books, biography, for instance, of Sally Ride, the first woman, American woman to go to space. And Sally, this is a biography about Sally, but while the grown-ups are reading this one, the kids can read Sally's own book about going to space. That's really beautifully illustrated. It's for older kids. And she also wrote a easier to read book about astronomy. So all kinds of books to read. And read together. We'll do it together. Word number 4 is watch. And I'm just going to say there are hundreds, probably not hundreds, but at least dozens of really quality documentaries and even movies about space and space exploration. My favorite is probably Apollo 13. I think it's still the best movie that's ever been done, most faithful to what really happened, but still dramatic and just a quality film experience. I'm going to link a couple other documentaries that my son and I watched together, and I think we grew closer as we watched From the Earth to the Moon, the miniseries, In the Shadow of the Moon, great documentary done by an English director. There's a mission control documentary that's just excellent. Last Man on the Moon, the new Challenger documentary, maybe for older kids because it doesn't end well, as you know that story. All of those, so that's watch. And then my last verb that I want to talk about is go. Go to museums, go to events, go to star parties, go hear speakers. This is kind of a fun thing to do because they have events all over Europe, all over America, all over Australia, wherever you're watching from, probably, that you can go and see famous scientists, famous astronomers, people who have put spacecraft out to Saturn or Jupiter, even Pluto. You can go and meet astronauts. This is a picture from the first time my son met a moonwalker. This is Jack Smith of Apollo 17. We did that about 10 years ago in 2010, and we've been hooked ever since. Another memory here, when we went to an anniversary of something, I can't remember what it was. I think maybe the 50th birthday of the Kansas Cosmosphere, and this is the event picture that we got to take with astronauts on both sides of us. And it's a kind of cool thing as your kids get to be teens and their peers start to be more important than their parents, to have some kind of something that connects you. And my son and I went to events together all the time. So go, watch, read, play, look up in no particular order my 5 verbs for you. And the last thing I want to just tell you about is this little book, the Itty Bitty Explore Space book. It's by one of our Space Hipster members. It just has like 15 things that you can do as a family to learn more about space and to observe International Space Week. So I'm going to link that too. Well, thanks for watching. And I hope that some of these things have sparked some ideas about something to do together. Most of these things can be done even during the pandemic. You might have to put off go, although even some of the museums are open limited hours and reservations, and they're pretty safe. Have a good week, and Major Tim Space will be back next week.